Attending via Zoom, who is not in the dispensary business or cannabis business at present? We're not familiar with it. And take off your mic if you are not familiar with medical marijuana or recreational marijuana laws. Very good. I think everybody in attendance is familiar or is in the business. So I'll adjust my presentation accordingly. And there's nobody in the room, obviously. You guys are in the business with PD, with the city. He's about to be. Very good. Well, in that case, I'll just take you through the highlights of our draft code. we were prepared for members of the public to show up that might not be familiar and kind of go through the whole the high level Proposition 207 and what that authorizes cities to do. I think you're all well aware of what that is. If anybody has any questions or would like me to recap that, please go ahead and interrupt or let me know. That said, I'll quickly advance to the presentation to. I'll start here and might accelerate past another item, another agenda item. But so, as I think all of you know, ADHS is allotting two medical dispensary, or did allot two medical dispensary licenses to Gila County back in the beginning of the medical marijuana legalization. And currently, one operates in Payson. The other was operating in Globe until about 2019. So currently in Gila County, there's only one medical license. No additional medical licenses are anticipated, and the city understands that, at least for now. Prop 207 early applicant program, which I think all of you are probably interested in pursuing a license. Lots of max of 2 recreation licenses in Gila County. And the existing medical dispensary is going to get one, and I believe did. So that leaves us with one recreational license yet to be allocated to Gila County. Globe does believe we're in a geographic position, among other things, to receive that license, ideally. So with that in mind, that's how we've kind of addressed or prepared some of the language in the zoning ordinance that we'll review this evening. The remaining recreational licenses will be by lottery, as you know, and if we don't get one in this first round or in the early applications, we know that the social equity licenses will be coming up, and that will be another opportunity. So, what can municipalities regulate? And I think you all know this. Well, we can enact zoning regulations to limit the use of land for marijuana establishments and marijuana testing facilities to specific areas. We can limit the number of marijuana establishments in the community, prohibit establishments if we wished, or prohibit testing, or both. We can also regulate the time, place, and manner in which marijuana facilities operate. We can restrict signage, as well as allow or prohibit delivery within the jurisdiction for recreational marijuana sales. The text amendment that it was prepared very closely mimics the medical marijuana process, which is through an approved conditional use permit. We do, in the code, the current draft allows testing facilities without any cap in any zoning district that dispensaries are allowed, which is the C2, C3, which are 2 commercial districts, and then M1 and M2, which are industrial districts. One thing we did recognize through research and working on the ordinance, the draft ordinance, is that we know that there is the potential for hazardous materials and accidents to occur in the manufacturing or extraction processes, depending on what materials are being used and doing that. So we will keep a close eye, and likely, if there are levels of combustible materials require that that type of extraction or manufacturing process remain in our industrial districts or industrial zones. We have drafted to not allow deliveries for recreational marijuana. And then we also are modifying the existing medical marijuana section of the zoning ordinance to allow up to 2 recreational and up to 2 medical licenses within the community. Ideally, the city would like to see those as dual licensed locations. So potentially 2 locations in Globe has been the discussion to date. And then finally, the reason why we amended the medical license portion is because we inserted separation distances that weren't originally included in the city's zoning ordinance. And those separation distances are the same for both recreational and medical establishments. And what those separations are, basically we want to maintain a half-mile distance from other marijuana establishments in the community, as well, and I believe it's actually written to be specific to only dispensaries. And then we want to maintain the existing statutory requirement for medical establishments to be 500 feet from any K through 12 schools. We require a 250-foot distance from a proposed facility to a residentially zoned lot, developed lot in the community, and then a 100-foot distance separation from churches, which are mostly aggregated around the downtown, the historic downtown of Globe, where our current conditional use permit that was previously issued for a medical license exists. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions, and I'd also be happy to take you through the actual language of the ordinance. We'll start with our live audience, if you don't mind. So please, if you'd like to address the city, step up to the microphone, just state your name, your business or address.
Yeah, hello, my name is Alfred Hermes. I work with Endo Farms and Endo Verde. We are working with the current building owner and one of our partners who owns a property here in Globe on 200 North Broad Street, which is the previous dispensary location here in Globe. And we're applying for one of the adult use or the marijuana establishment licenses. We currently operate a production laboratory in Payson, Arizona, which is in Gila County. So we do employ about 10-15 people in Gila County currently. And our goal is to just do dispensary operations here in Globe, but really keep everything within the county. And that's why we're going for a license here in Globe, just to kind of play on the fact that we're already in Payson and keep it within the county for the most part. So on the proposed bill, we do, at least with what you had stated with the distances, we just believe that all those distances should be enforced and not lessened any. They're already pretty low compared to the rest of the industry, and which isn't a bad thing because, like Dana had mentioned, it allows our location to sit where it does compared to some of the existing buildings. But we just propose that that stays enforced with those distances that are currently allocated and drafted in the bill. And that's pretty much it. I know I told you we'd send some emails with some other things that me and the team brainstorm on, but really just those distances and keeping those where they're at is something that we advocate for.
Very good. Hermes, I appreciate your input. And yes, for anybody, please, if you have written comments you'd like to submit as well, I know all of you have received the draft. Please feel free to ask questions via email at any point. Ideally, we wrap up the Q&A, though, or public comment period, ideally by this Friday, as we'll have a Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing next Wednesday. And if we need to make adjustments in our staff report or adjustments in looking at the language, we'd like to do that with Planning and Zoning Commission and have that information available prior to that meeting. So that said, thank you very much again, Hermes. Next, Lauren, would you like to make any public comment or provide any feedback on the proposed ordinance?
Is that me, Lauren?
Yes, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Lauren Niehaus, Harvest Health and Recreation, headquarters 1155 West Rio Salado Parkway in Tempe. No, I just wanted to thank you guys for being proactive about this. I know that this came up quickly with DHS having this very finite period of time in which you guys are able to put an ordinance in place so that us desired applicants can get an application in. My question was in regards to the zoning verification form. And if the city has, from DHS, if the city has seen that, if there are any issues that the city foresees in terms of sign off on that, and you don't have to answer it, I just wanted to raise it as a consideration.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Dana Burkhart. Again, I'm the zoning administrator. If I didn't introduce myself originally, I think most people have been communicating with me. We have been issuing zoning compliance letters, and I can send you an example of what we issue. And it was developed. It is the current draft that the ADHS has distributed, I think, on February 8th, or I'm sorry, January 8th, probably. So we are using that form with the 4 boxes. We checked the first box, that being no current ordinance. However, they've instructed me to add a note, since we are contemplating, and we do have some distance separations proposed, that we add a note to that document, and then I also attach a letter that explains this location meets the current contemplated language the city should be adopting or anticipates adoption of recreational marijuana zoning ordinance by the end of February. So I can provide that, Lauren. Just send me an email with the property location, and I will forward you that information and do a review.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's again, thank you for your proactivity, because that hasn't been the case everywhere. So we really appreciate that.
My pleasure. Any further comment, Lauren?
That'll do it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Gary Mesh, would you like to make any comment?
No, I'm supporting Alfred there, and we're not a licensee now. He didn't mention that, but we're working through the Payson licensee. But he made some comments that are the same as mine.
Very good. Thank you very much, Gary, for attending.
And if you want any information about the operations of processing, extraction, and other things like that, Alfred trains the fire departments in all that technology and the safety issues and things like that. And we have a farmer level lab in place in Payson. People can even visit there if they want to see what that is, although we aren't planning to do that at the dispensary location. If there was a license granted, we would do it elsewhere, just because it's not the kind of thing you do generally in a resident or in a strip front facing location.
Very good, Gary. That's a really good point. Yes, obviously the downtown is our biggest concern because of the historic nature and the significance of structures and their closeness. So any information you do have, or if you're familiar with codes that other community codes or regulations that provide some good protection or regulation for fire protection for that extraction process, that'd be very, very helpful.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because in this business being illegal, you don't have the normal inspectors, but you do have the fire department, and they don't have training in this from their normal operation. So that's what occurred with us, is that, in fact, just the actual event was that the entire fire department from Payson came for a training session, spent the day and went through the lab and got an education on how things are processed, how things are stored, why we have an explosion-proof container that's custom-made lab for that process, and what the risks are, what kind of chemicals we use, other people use, things like that. But the fire department doesn't normally run into these, particularly in a rural area, and so it was all new to them. And so they were quite appreciative to get some direct hands-on and feel for it and see how something's processed and how the stuff is how the product is stored, but also all the chemicals, CO2 and hydrocarbons and other things that are used for solvents in this extraction process are done. So we could be glad to give you that kind of an education if you need it, or go into any details regarding it, because it is, let's say there have been accidents, not in our place, but other places. And it's real important that they're done in the right kind of, lab environment. So, and what you should know, of course, there wasn't testing and other things until just recently, so the quality of operations are going to jump up with the testing requirements, forcing everyone to get up to a higher level on the finished product.
Thank you, Gary. To that point, is your understanding as well, testing it doesn't necessarily have the concerns or the life safety issues that manufacturing and extraction does. Is that correct?
Right.
Testing strictly as very small quantities that are being tested, then destroyed. But I thought it was interesting the way the statute separated out testing like it was something weirdly different, and other communities have restricted or prohibited testing.
Yeah, it seems
That's
odd.
exactly what I thought,
but
and that's
yeah.
the path we headed down. But then we've since figured that out, that that's not the case. So yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's their testing is not a dangerous item. I mean, they have very expensive equipment. I have a background in FDA testing and things like that. It's not they're not storing infectious diseases or anything. They are just testing samples, batch samples of the flour or the processed oils, and testing for that list of items. But it's it's destructive testing, but it's just small samples which they're putting in their instruments.
Excellent. Well, we may take you up on that the tour with our fire department as things become more real for the city. So
Okay.
appreciate that opportunity. All right, very good. Moving on. Rachel McClure, any comment?
Hi, Dana.
Hi.
No, just, essentially I also support the restrictions that have been put in place or that are, expected to be put in place. It's pretty reasonable given the geography of Globe and how tightly knit everything is. Essentially, I appreciate the city. I've had the opportunity to work with City of Phoenix, City of El Mirage, and some other smaller communities. And everybody's been super responsive and informative and helpful. And I just very much appreciate being able to be part of the process and having such a responsive city council and just everybody involved in the process has been amazing. So I think everything's super reasonable. As always, you can reach out to me as a resource if you've got any questions. And I just appreciate you.
Likewise, Rachel. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana.
And Mr. Whitley, Aaron Whitley.
Hey, Dana, how's it going?
Wonderful. Thanks.
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking off of what Ms. McClure stated as far as all the concordance we've had back and forth. It's nice to put a voice to the concordance, and also agreeing with the ordinances of distances. To uphold the longevity of like she was stating, the smaller towns. And I apologize, I jumped on kind of late, but I guess one of the questions was, are you guys proposing or putting anything in there in regards to the facility agents needing to have a primary residence in the city of Globe?
Aaron, that's a great idea. I didn't even think about that. But no, joking.
This is for keeping everything, local, and the tax benefits go into the city. I think it would be a little bit helpful if we had residents that become facility agents, and just for security reasons too. If someone needs to get to a facility quick, it might be something to implore.
I appreciate that, and definitely, obviously, employment of local of citizens is something that goes a long way in the city. Well, thank you, Aaron. Well, and then you've had access to the ordinance. If you think of anything else between now and the end of the public review process, please reach out. Can you tell me, are there other communities that do have that requirement, and who that would be to reside in or have a resident in the community?
I've never seen it in writing, but in regards to some people wanting to not give out the zoning approvals without vetting those types of questions, but nothing in writing. And it's more so based off of not me trying to be in the requirements, but just looking out for the city of Globe and the integrity and longevity of an establishment there.
Very good. Great thought. Thank you very much, Aaron.
Yep.
Hey, Lauren, do you have a question?
I just wanted to follow up on what the gentleman was just speaking of, and we also have not seen that in writing in the state of Arizona. It's done a lot in the state of California, but we certainly are on the side of supporting local employment just for those reasons of helping economic development as well as continuing, having people have access to the facility. So it's been done, just not much in Arizona.
Excellent. Well, I would also just mention that at our last council meeting, some council members were expressed some concern regarding our process and is a CUP should that be the right mechanism to do this? And I'd be curious to hear from people in the industry here. My understanding is that it's clearly a common and expected procedure. I'm not aware of any community that doesn't. Does anybody have a thought otherwise, or are you supportive of the conditional use permit process? Alfred?
Yes.
Excellent, very good. And to that point, I would also just mention the city has not imposed, the current draft ordinance does not impose any restrictions on area. And I know most other communities seem to restrict the area that you're allowed to either store products or display, or the actual footprint of the operation could be more than 25 or 33,000 square feet, 2,500 or 3,000. So we just didn't understand how that would impact, as long as we can park it, right, and deal with any density, concerns or access concerns. We really didn't have an issue. So, excellent. And also, as the ordinance is written currently, we'll just review hours of operation at the time of the use permit when you come and apply. Talk about it and try and leave some flexibility there for you, as well as signage. I will likely have a policy to keep signage, in appropriate scale to the frontage of the building, so we can avoid any just extensive advertisement on a face of a building, particularly in our downtown is historic and has a lot of oversight to ensure compatibility with our historic character. Go ahead, Ian. Good question. So I'm sure you've seen the language of our proposed amendment previously, as it works from, or it's built upon the model ordinance provided by the League of Cities, and that happens to be it's on page 5 of the draft, number 5. Not display or keep marijuana or marijuana products that are visible from outside the premises. So being visible, I would say, yeah, none of those products could actually be, obviously seen from the sidewalk or outside. So there is no, amount or transparency, requirement of 25% of the glass. Got it. I think if something slipped through the crack and we were made aware of it, we would send you a notice to make sure we stay in compliance with that use permit and visuals. That's an easy one to quantify. Can you see it or not? Yes. Are we going to stand out in front of your business every day and see what we can see when the door opens? Probably not. So, very good. Any further questions from anybody on Zoom or comment? Very good. I see nothing else. Please interrupt me if you do have anything remaining to say. I want to thank you all very much for your input and participating in this process and continuing to keep an eye on it. As you're all aware, the next meeting is next Wednesday, February 17th, 6 p.m. in the City Council chambers. There will also be a Zoom link if you'd like to attend by Zoom, where the Planning and Zoning Commission will be considering the draft text amendment and holding a public hearing for additional public comment, public testimony. And I encourage any of you to submit a letter in support or protest, whichever, or opposition. And that would be included in the staff report as well. And there's a public hearing that day, so you'll have the opportunity to speak and track that conversation and be a part of that conversation, at least during the period that the public hearing is open. Then ideally, if they make a recommendation to the City Council, it'll be on City Council's agenda the following Tuesday, which is the February 23rd. And that meeting is at 6 p.m. in the council chambers as well. And also there will be the ability to Zoom or watch via the Globe YouTube channel, and you can text in or call in if you'd like to speak on any of those items. Same information. If you provide any letters for or against, they will be included in the staff report as an attachment. So with that, I will wrap up if nobody has any further questions. Excellent. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks,
Thank
Dana.
you.
Have a good evening.
Take care.